What did your mom when did she finally come to terms with you were a pilot and that's what you wanted to be?
There was no terms. The wonderful story about Little Mama, as we call her, Virginia Shy Funk, she went up in Olney, Illinois, when she was in high school in about 1916, when the barnstormers landed next to her school. And she and her girlfriends jumped the fence and went over there, and she found her brothers. And she said, well, Frank and DeWitt, I need some money. I want to go up. So they borrowed from their friends, and Little Mama got her $10 and went up for her 10 minutes, and we best figure out a Fokker aircraft without a tail wheel. It had a skid. And the pilot did loops, and Mother said he did loop-de-loops, and she was extraordinarily taken by the earth and how everything was laid out, and came back down and landed, and she was hooked. She was so excited. She went back to her parents, said, I just had a wonderful time. Of course, the boys weren't going to say they went flying. But she, being the baby, said she wanted to learn to fly. And her stern father, who was my grandfather, said, no, young lady, you will be a fine young lady, a wonderful wife, an exemplary person to your children. And she was just that. So when I came along, I was jumping off the barn at 5 in Taos with my Superman cape. And so they encouraged me. Mother took me out to the little tiny Taos airport. I could study a Cessna 195, see how it was built, see how the rivets were, how the wings were, how the elevators were, how the engine was. And then Father would bring me home balsa wood model airplanes for me to cut out and make them. So my ceiling at home was full of airplanes hanging down from threads. Now, of course, Mother wanted me to have pinafores and all these wonderful little girly things, which got kind of pushed in the corner. So I was kind of the mechanical kid, and I learned to build things and work with machinery and build my model airplanes. So when I got to Stevens, my first year, I wasn't doing too terribly well in the academic world. And my advisor, Dr. Bates, who is alive in North Carolina, called my parents up one day and said, Mr. and Mrs. Funk, would you allow your daughter to fly? And without a hesitation, Mother said, yes, she can. So before Mother left a couple of years ago, I asked her, why were you so quick to say, yes, I could fly? She says, honey, I carried the gene and gave it to you so you could fly. And when I got my license, I went from Columbia to Mattoon, and I took her up. She was my first passenger, and she loved every minute of it. And since then, I took my parents everywhere I've gone in flight, and my father passed away fairly young in my life, and I took Mother in all my trips and all my flying times, races, when I was in showing cars, when I was an investigator. I took her to everything that I did. I wanted her to experience what she missed in her childhood and her young adult life and what she gave me. And I am very thankful to her in letting me be the kid that I am and always will be.